Hi there, Tian. Sorry about this late video. No, I already apologized a couple times, but this will not be our default setting. Starting with how to hold the guitar, I believe we had you kind of like this a little bit too much with the guitar too far at an angle for our taste, which then leads to a discussion of left arm positioning. So for starts, we'd like it closer to a right angle, slightly tilted out, but not much. And I think we did this during the lesson where I put my palm face up in my lap, not on my leg, but in my lap, and look at where my elbow position is. It'll be towards the front of my torso. And we're naturally going to move nominally when we go to grab the guitar, but we don't want to crank our elbow back. That can lead to basically the same thing that would happen out here, which functionally, if the correction for that is move my arm back, then nothing actually changed, probably, aside from having more tension in your shoulder. So what we would like to go for is just this feeling of dead left arm, completely relaxed, ergonomic. And then, very often we're in our classical thumb position for bar chords and things with reaches, which is dead smack in the middle like that, with my thumb flush against the fretboard. And again, we could say unilaterally, unless we're classical guitarists, that's utility is bar chords and things that you need to do reaches in, past four-finger playing. And then just some four-finger playing situations could accommodate both, but you can't do anything in reach position. Cool, so I don't actually have the link to the video we were going over during the lesson, but I think it's a good candidate overall for the thumb in classical position, as you do have some pinky notes. I want to talk about down-up picking, but really quickly, just revisiting our clutch position, or when our thumb's over the top, we want one total thumb joint, not multiple. And you can actually hang the weight of your left arm off of that and get a sense of how far out in front of the fretboard that'll put you. Where you can do everything like that but not reach. And you'll see a lot of people who never leave that position, including playing bar chords with their thumb and so forth. That would be, a pretty big deviation from what's standard. Cool, so that's us, and let's just focus on left hand for a second. I'm not finding that exact link to the exact version of the YouTube clip you sent me, but I remember it being something like or something along those lines. So let's call the first riff that had this being third fret position, meaning my first finger's at the third fret. So I'm not trying to design one fingering for the entire riff, and I do remember that it had. And then if we were going to, that same note that's is E here on the fourth string at the second fret, so we could theoretically go, but I don't really think that's what we'll do. We'll do something more like what the guy does in the song. And this is a riff where if you just threw your thumb over the top, you could play everything, but that would be like the one big finger approach, really just favoring two fingers, which isn't the end of the world, it's just not really efficient. So before you think about your right hand, just make sure your left hand position is good, and maybe don't even play the rhythm, just go over. Now the thing is, we don't want to be rolling our fingers off. If I'm just going third fret, fourth fret, fifth fret here, that's going to have me pushing down one, now two, now three fingers. There's not going to be any occasion to go, and there aren't really riffs that are not ever going to involve our first finger in some capacity. We won't really be playing too much like this. So that makes our fingering decisions for the song somewhat easier. It's like we're at third fret position, and then we advance up to fourth fret position, where we want to be going not or anything like that, as though you were always about to do a pull-off right back down in the pattern, or something along those lines. So what I'd love you to do is just map that out really quick without doing the rhythm. Just kind of go over those fingerings, think about the technique details that we've been going over, and then we'll include your right hand also. Alright, so I'm on an acoustic guitar. I've got my arms swung around the instrument, and I've got the entire weight of my humerus just chilling on it like that, which is the main thing that's steadying the instrument. So we are going to try to be in that position as opposed to something more out in front of the instrument, locking it in place, which can create this kind of position. What we're actually looking to do with our picking motion. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't find that on YouTube. But I think we're covering all of it here very, very clearly. Cool. So if we're looking at this song, I believe that it's a good candidate just for alternate picking. And my range of motion is going to be really minimal, just my wrist doing this with a little bit of elbow involvement. Just a quick discussion of rhythm guitar. We may or may not have talked about this, but when you're strumming full on, it's going to be a wider range of motion than we anticipate initially. Like, not that at all. But when I'm playing random chords, I'm all the way down here, I'm all the way up there. I'm trying to hit all the strings with the same amount of attack. And that's what's involved in doing that functionally. Is this it? No. At any rate, so if you want to pause and actually think about some rhythm guitar stuff, that's cool, but I don't think we spent a whole lot of time on that. So yeah, in general, we want to be alternate picking. This kind of can be done all with downward picks, but in general, we want to alternate pick through the whole thing. Down, up, down, up, down, up, etc. Though ultimately our down, up choices are really just informed by what string we're going to subsequently, but our default for playing succession of notes over and over will be down, up. And this, yeah, that's the range of motion right there. Big strums, wrist is loose, little picks, smallish range of motion without having our arm over here like this. Great, so I do believe that's the vast majority of what we covered. I also want to encourage you to learn a few note names if you don't know them already, and I don't mean familiarize yourself with the note names, I mean learn them like for a geography test. Like, you know, if I introduced 4 friends, you'd memorize their names rather than create a deductive reasoning system for it. And we tend to get our orientation off of the bass strings. So if you note G and C here at the 5th fret, and this assumes you know the names of the open strings, and I believe you do, then we've got A and D at the 5th fret, G, C, A, D. Now before you start thinking G, C, A, D, please immediately stop and give yourself a randomized order geography test, as though there's flashcards that say G, C, A, D, and you shuffle them. The key is not to set up a system for finding D that requires going G, C, A for your muscle memory to trigger there. And memorizing note names, when we really think about the nature of the task we're undertaking, is like, you know, a kindergarten level activity. And we want to get good up to the 8th fret. So there's section 1. We've got G, C, A, D. And I'm going to refer to these as landmarks. You know, if we know this is G, finding G flat, no problem. Finding G sharp, no problem. And those will just come up organically enough times where you'll somewhat accidentally memorize them. Section 2, and I'm making a point to divide this. Like we talked about in class, we're going to break things into small sections, and that's how we get enough creative, conscious focus available to think about the minutiae of technique, detail, and so forth. So it's a lot easier to learn 4 notes than it is to learn 8 notes all at the same time, even if it is the same project. So 7th fret, B, E, 8th fret, C, F, same project. And I really encourage you not to start doing all 8 notes until you've really memorized the first 4. That order of operations emphasis will make what could have been somewhat of a time-consuming task into something that should be pretty fast. You know, and have the dialogue with yourself. Like, I tend to forget that's F. I tend to confuse it with C. I mean, a good thing can be calling out 2 notes. Just be like, hey, I'm going to play A, then C. In this case, we could have 2 different C's that we covered. So rather than just giving yourself a quiz on 1 random note, actually picking 2 potentially. So hopefully that covers a huge percentage of what we went over in class. We did talk about our memorization headspace, where we're really consciously focused, during which we can completely disregard things like rhythm and tempo, and, you know, go, like, I'm learning the dance moves. It's a conscious interaction. And then we switch to our playing headspace, which is an entirely feel-based, okay, now I'm just going to go for it headspace. Cool. So hopefully that's enough to keep you busy for these few days. Generally, our process is going to be, I'll set an alarm for the last 5 minutes of the lesson, maybe 10 minutes, and make your video right then and there. But we were at our first lesson in transacting and so forth. Once again, want to apologize. I'm sure you've been getting some good practice in, though. And let me know if you need any additional footage. But yeah, really just focus on those few technique details. Even if it doesn't seem like we're doing anything terribly profound or difficult, training yourself not to roll through your fingers and thinking about position slightly differently for something that you already do, it can be challenging to switch to something that's just very slightly different when you can already do it the other way, so to speak. All right, I will see you in the near future, and hope you're having a good week and so forth. Take care. Thank you.